RNG gods will decide my fate at the start of each zone by rolling 4 brand new skills and using only them to complete the whole zone. The goal is to hit max level as a hardcore character with a brand new random build on each of the areas, as every new zone will force me to roll a fresh set of 4 skills that I can only use until zone completion. After level 10, we will also get random talents every level, but we will get back to them later in the episode. Thankfully, Ascension Classless allows us to do it, and with recent changes that massively overhaul the open world, it will be more exciting than ever to explore it with some strange RNG classless builds, so let's dive right in. We begin in Teldrasil. I've always loved the Night Elf zones, big purple trees, moody forests, good vibes. I'm just standing there with a sword, a shield, and a couple of backup weapons waiting for the RNG gods to decide my fate. Time to roll the very first ability of the run, and it's an auto shot. Not bad. In fact, that's a very solid start. It's ranged, it let me pause mobs before they claw my face off, and it actually makes me feel like I have a plan. Because of that, I lock in agility as a main stat, but here's where it gets tricky. Thanks to the recent changes, new characters now start with only one ability, and you don't unlock the rest of your random 4 until level 10. Therefore, my first zone will be even harder than expected. I've got auto shot and auto attack. And no, auto attack doesn't count as a skill, even Murlocs can do that. Before heading out, I visit Stony Tark, the NPC who runs all the trails and enable hardcore mode. That means I only get 1 life, 1 wrong pull, 1 disconnect, 1 oops I wasn't looking, and it's all over. The reward if I succeed? A shiny fell saber mount. The punishment if I fail? Well, let's just not talk about it yet. And so, armed with auto shot, auto attack, and a dream, I accept my first quest to restore balance in Shadowglen. Since I picked agility, I do get nice passive perks. Wield a one-hander and my ability global cooldowns are shorter. Wield a two-hander and my crit damage goes up. But right now, cooldowns don't really matter because I only have auto shot, therefore I grab the biggest, chunkiest two-hander I can find and pray for crits while kiting mobs like my life depends on it, because it literally does. I'm not gonna lie, I thought classless realms were completely dead at this point, but it turns out they're still alive and kicking. And there are actually quite a few people running around trying them out. After a couple of kills, I've got my very first upgrade, a green cloth piece with spirit. Nothing fancy, but it's my first green, and it's got more armor than what I had. Plus, auto shot turned out to be a fantastic first roll. I could kite mobs from distance, whittle them down, and then finish them off with a couple of melee swings once they closed the gap. Therefore, clearing the first quest wasn't as painful as I feared. While picking up more quests, I stumbled upon the very first world-forged item. These are custom Ascension items scattered across Azeroth. Some are powerful, some are odd. My first one, that boosted my herbalism by 5. Not exactly game-breaking, but still neat. You may say that these items can sometimes feel overpowered. Therefore, Ascension balanced things out by making mobs a lot stronger in the open world. The result? A tougher but way more engaging leveling experience. Honestly, this is exactly what I wanted. I've always loved the classless system, but some older changes like mana storms kind of killed the open world vibe for me. These new updates brought that spark back. At the Worldforged kept things spicy. From Grells, I looted a 10-slot bag. Huge upgrade at this level. Then some food called delicious dried corn that gave me strength and intellect when well fed. Fancy dinner buffs at level 3, not bad. Later, I picked up a Titan Scroll, Ascension version of a world buff. This one gave me a small chance on kill to summon a healing pool. Sounds great, but unfortunately I wasn't high enough level to use it yet, which is typical. One big perk of having auto shot is that ammo doesn't exist anymore on Ascension. No bullets, no arrows, no vendor runs. Therefore, I can pew endlessly without worrying about my bags filling with feathers and scrap metal. Speaking of bags, classless rules mean I can also wear any armor type, cloth, leather, main, plate, whatever drops. I just have to focus on my current main stat, which is agility. at least for now. After turning in quested Teldrasil, I hit level 3 and unlocked my second random ability. This time, a Victory Rush, a warrior skill that not only finishes off enemies, but also heals me for 10% of my health. That's actually quite huge. While questing in Teldrasil, I even found a brand new NPC. He asked me to help look for his sister, who had wandered off to join a druidic circle. Therefore, I picked up his quest. It seemed like a neat story hook to follow later, and let me tell you, Victory Rush was a game changer. I could pull with auto shot, take mobs up to low health, then slam them with Victory Rush for big damage and a free heal. My survivability instantly went through the roof. Now, here's a question for you guys. Should I be allowed to use racial abilities in this challenge? My rule is 4 skills only until level 10. But racials technically count as an extra button. Night Elf Shadow Melt, for example, is really strong. It can literally save my life in a hardcore run. Should that be allowed? Let me know in the comments. But back to adventure. While exploring, I found a Moonbath Necklace that boosted my agility and attack power. A nice upgrade, except it required level 4. Therefore I had to wait. Luckily, a few quests later, I dinged level 4, equipped the necklaces, and also picked up a cracked sledge, a big two-handed mace, perfect for my auto-attacking crit heavy playstyle. At this point, I discovered a new path that led into one Ascension's custom subzones. Every starting zone has one of these now, so I was tempted to dive right in, but I decided to head back to Shadowglen first, turn in my quests, and push for level 5 before exploring new content. While in town, I also treated myself to a Hornwood recurve bow from the vendor. It only cost 1 silver, which I had from selling extra greens. It may not sound like much, but since auto shot is my main damage tool right now, this was a huge DPS boost. Sometimes the small upgrades are the ones that matter most. While clearing out the spider cave for eggs, I ran into Githis the Vile, the local spider boss. He dropped something really wild, a trinket that gave me +1 spirit and a chance on melee hit to deal nature damage. Pretty sweet for level 4, but here's the weird part. When I looted it, the game automatically equipped it, even though it requires level 5. Therefore, I wasn't sure if it was working or if I was just cosplaying as a cheater. Next to Githis' body, I also found a jar of spiders, another trinket you can literally pop open to unleash a swarm of spiders on your enemies. 2 trinkets at level 4? That's actually insane. Naturally, I had to test it. The jar released 3 little spider buddies who gnawed at enemies for about 15 seconds. The damage wasn't game breaking, but hey, it was free DPS and looked hilarious. With the egg secured, I dinged level 5, but I didn't unlock my 3rd ability yet, so I had to wait a little longer. Along the way, I also rescued a lost tracker from a cage and scored a green dagger with agility and stamina. Therefore, I swapped into a dagger and auto-shot hybrid playstyle. Since Victory Rush scales off attack power instead of weapon damage, the dagger still gave me a chunky heal finisher combo. Heading deeper into Teldrasil, I stumbled into the vulture cult storyline. Their leader was a night elf dressed in what looked like a Halloween harpy costume, and you could actually chat with her for a bit of lore. It turned out the sister I was searching for was in the middle of some druidic communion, but instead of tree-hugging rituals, these druids were all about feasting on corpses. Therefore, my job was to fetch meat and fight their corrupted boss pet. The boss was quite rough. I had no healing outside Victory Rush, but between dagger weaving and dropping my spider jar, I managed to come out victorious from this endeavor, although it was really close, and I have to say that this was our very first close call in the hardcore run. Then, in true vulture fashion, I had to cut off the meat of the night elven corpses myself, which of course summoned angry spirits who weren't thrilled about me snacking on their bodies. Definitely not a standard druidic circle, but the quests did pay off. I picked up a one-handed sword to go with my dagger, giving me a speedy dual wield setup. And by the time I turned in the meat quest, I hit level 6, unlocking another random skill. This time, Prowl. Completely useless without cat form, therefore straight into trash it went. The story escalated when I learned even the vulture god hated the corrupted meat, so I had to cleanse it at the Moonwell. At this point, the cult officially felt sketchy. desecrating corpses in the name of some mysterious god? History tells us that it rarely ends well. Eventually, I confronted Elinda, the sister I'll be tracking down. The fight was quite epic, dodging holographic skills, weaving between the spellcasts and trying not to die with my one life rule. But in the end, I proved stronger with the help of some other elf that was doing the quest as well and claimed victory. My reward, a cloak of the 7 vulture virtues with +1 stamina. Not flashy, but I'll take the survivability. On the way out, I met another NPC who revealed the cult was even darker than I thought. They were planning to sacrifice newborn night elves to their god. My task, rescue the babies by turning them into butterflies. Don't question the logistics. And sending them to safety. Morbid, but also wholesome. That quest pushed me to level 7 and wrapped up my time in Teldrasil. Before leaving the zone though, I ran into the brother of that sister I had, well, accidentally murdered. You can tell him the truth or lie to spare his feeling. I went with honesty, felt like the right call, and got a unique reaction. It's a nice touch that Ascension lets you roleplay those moments. At the border of the zone I found another World Forge item, this time an 8-slot bag. Even though my bags were already full of 6 slotters, more space is always welcome. Whilst finishing up another quest, I also looted a Case of Fortune, a special item used to reroll abilities. I can only do rerolls at the start of each zone, so for now it's useless, but I tucked it away for later. At this point, I was still waiting for my 4th ability, which should land around level 9. It could be something amazing, like a fireball, or completely useless, like another stealth skill I can't use. But that's the fun and pain of RNG. The cool thing about Ascension is that every ability still scales off of your main stats in some way. Right now, my agility setup boosts melee and range skills the most, but spells still gain some benefit. Therefore, depending on what rolls I get in the future zones, I might need to respec into strength or intellect and farm a whole new set of gear. Strategic planning is going to be huge for this challenge. For now though, the run's been smooth, no close calls yet, no deaths and plenty of upgrades. Ascension level scaling means I can't just outlevel zone and skip ahead to winter spring, but it does ensure every area stays challenging. And since all the World Forge items scale with you, every find feels valuable. Therefore, with 3 abilities down, well, 2 useful ones, and my eyes on that 4th roll, I'm feeling pretty good heading into the next chapter. When we finally reach Dolanaar, I noticed something different. On Ascension, your 2nd village already lets you learn riding. But it's not full riding, it's the novice riding, which gives you 40% speed. It's not crazy fast, but it's still way better than jogging everywhere. Therefore it feels like a nice little quality of life upgrade, letting us move faster earlier without really breaking the game. While picking up quests, I also stumbled across the Blade of the Submerged Moon, a sleek polyarm that boosts agility, increases swim speed, and hits harder than my old weapon. More damage and better stats? Yes please. After turning in some quests, I dinged level 8, but I wasn't too excited yet, because the 4th and final ability roll for Teldrasil only comes at level 9, therefore it was back to grinding for one more level. Dolanaar itself didn't really have much else for us, so I followed my usual night elf route and headed to the Furbolg village by the Moonwell. There, while filling the Jade Phial, I found a forgotten cane, a staff with spell power. Useless for now, but I kept it just in case my next random spell forced me into caster mode. Better safe than sorry, right? In Starbreeze village, I ran into a rare mob named Ursulon. He had a nasty dot, but I countered by unleashing my trusty bottle of spiders. They chewed through him, and in return I scored some big upgrades. Sturdy warrior pants with stamina, and a new cloak that was finally long enough to look like a hand towel. Later, I grabbed the Emerald Dreamcatcher from Talonkai Footlocker and headed back to Dolanaar. Turning in the quests finally pushed me to level 9, and with that came the last roll for my starting zone abilities. Iron Jesus smiled upon me with the Consecration. Now, the Consecration is fine, it's not useless, but it's not exactly thrilling either. I don't have mana problems, so I can drop it for some bonus AoE damage, but starter zone mobs die too fast to make big AoE farming worth it. Therefore, it's basically a press if you're bored button. So, with Autoshot, Victory Rush and Consecration, my build so far looks like a weird mashup between Hunter and a Paladin. Let's call it the Holy Cannoneer. Oh, and don't forget the Prowl, which is still useless without a cat form. At least the rewards made up for it. Killing a cave boss gave me an adventurer's cache, which handed out a massive upgrade, a green chest piece with agility and stamina. That's kind of gear you feel in combat. Next up was the Thistle camp. I had to retrieve a druid's necklace, which wasn't too hard. On the way, I found another World 4 trinket. This one gave me stamina and restored mana over time. Could be handy for later, so I kept it. Now, at this point you might say this challenge seems too easy. And yes, in Teldrasil, the mobs aren't exactly nightmare fuel, but this is just the tutorial zone. Therefore, once we move out in the wider world, we will have much harder time surviving, especially in zones where some elite mob quests are included. Finally, I hit level 10. And that meant two things. From now on, I'll still only use my 4 zone abilities, but I'll roll new talents every level. At level 10, I already got my first talent and it was a synergy roll. The RNG gave me Hawkeye, which boosts my hit chance and increases autoshot's damage by 6%. That means that one ability I've been leaning on since level 1 is now officially stronger. Therefore, even though the consecration was kind of meh, this talent made up for the big time. At level 11, I rolled Vitality talent, which boosts energy regeneration. Sounds great, right? But I don't actually use any energy-based abilities yet, so it was basically just an empty tooltip taking up space. Therefore, I shrugged and carried on. The quests flowed smoothly, even in the den, which can sometimes be tricky. Nothing really threatened me, so I won't bore you with all the details. On the road to face Ursal the Mauler, I dinged level 12 and enrolled the Aspect of the Hawk talent. But here's the catch, I don't even have Aspect of the Hawk in the first place, so once again, it was just a dead space on my talent list. RNG really likes to troll me. Still, Ursal went down, and when I turned in the quest back at Dolanaar, I had a realization. If I'm going to keep playing with random builds, there's a real high chance I'll end up without any healing spells. Therefore, I decided to train up First Aid, as luckily, I'd been hoarding linen like a goblin, so I cranked out a good pile of bandages right away. On the way to the Classless Ascension surprised me with a new little area, Shalathil, a druid circle camp. Sadly, there were no quests yet, but sitting on the moonwell like it was waiting just for me was a shiny bow. And not just any bow, it literally doubled my DPS. Therefore, every quest from now on felt like I would strap a machine gun to my night elf. By the time I turned in quests in the Classless, I hit level 13 and RNG gods finally smiled. I rolled Lethality, a synergy talent that boosts my ranged crit chance by 5%. Considering I just swapped to a bow that melts faces, this was absolutely perfect. With my new firepower, I pushed north into Teldrasil, clearing out harpies, collecting tumors and killing some famous spider. That grind took me to level 14, where I got Twin Disciplines. It only buffs my holy damage by 3%, which isn't amazing for me, but it does make Consecration hit a little harder, therefore it's at least something. Finally, I circled back to wrap up my last quest from Denlan near the lake. He sent me after Oakenscowl, the elite Timberling. Normally, that would be scary, but with my new bow and talents, I just kited him around like a target practice. He barely got me to a half HP before dropping. Turning in his head and wrapping our business in the Classless marked the official end of Teldrasil. So here we are, still alive, still hardcore, and done with the starter zone. The Holy Archer build carried me safely through, but the real test begins next. Therefore, I packed my bags, waved goodbye to the trees of Teldrasil, and set off toward Darkshore to roll my next random build.